Hi, I'm Evil Ben,
And I am Evil Josh.
and welcome to episode 28.5 of the Bad at Magic podcast.
That's right. I have nothing to say about 28.5. These decimals drive me nuts. Other than we can infinitely split the many, many episodes. So we could have like 1,000 episodes between 28 and 29 if we really wanted to.
Well, Josh, it was time to give a little bit of a thank you to our Patreon supporters. So this is going to be some exclusive content only available on Patreon that will be kind of a elaboration on one of the concepts we touched on in episode 28, where you and I talked about an episode of the NBC sitcom Community.
That's right. We talked about Season 3, Episode 4, Remedial Chaos Theory, where they created the idea of the darkest timeline. And in Episode 28, we explored what reasons or what decisions we could have made to alter our own timelines. But we also briefly mentioned that we really need to just realize and embrace this that we're living in, Ben. This world is the darkest timeline. So everybody
This is the
your
darkest timeline.
everybody grow a goatee, embrace the evil, and let's just go down having fun.
All right. So if we have the evil timeline that we're on now, what's it like?
What should we do? Like how does one embrace evil? So I figure we could start easy. We will start with rules that you and I right now in our normal lives wish that we could break. And then we'll escalate it there. We'll start with simple things that are just like, societal rules or those unspoken politeness rules. And then we'll escalate it up into treason. And so we'll just baby step our way into being, horrifyingly evil people.
I like that that's at the top of your scale, treason, because at the top of my scale are things that like endanger the salvation of my eternal soul. That's way higher than treason.
Way higher than treason. So treason is not necessarily the top end of the scope. Treason, I think, is the top of the scope for that you can reasonably actually attain in a lifetime. Like if you work hard, you could achieve treason, Ben. You could. But the worst things that somebody could pull off is like mass genocide. Like we're talking like Hitler's and Stalin's now. But I mean, there's not everybody just wakes up and rolls out of bed and can be Stalin.
Yeah, you too can be Edward Snowden.
Yeah, it's the anti-outlier, right? It's the opposite of the Bill Gates and the Steve Jobs of the world. It's the people on the other end that like I can truly, with the right opportunities, aspire to be pure evil.
But start small.
Start small. So let's dip a toe into being evil, and that is, let's just go with the common laws, like the polite societal rules that we all live by. And I'm going to start because I know right off the bat the one that I want to break constantly, and I have broken several times. And that is, conversations are not mandatory. You cannot force me into a conversation by just talking at me. Like, you can't walk up to me and start talking to me and then act like I'm the one being rude when I turn away and walk off without saying a word to you.
Why do I have a feeling that evil Josh would be like Sheldon from Big Bang Theory?
No, that'd be nice. Like
You'd be like a physics professor, and if someone was talking to you and you're bored, you'd be like, bored, and walk away.
Yes. Actually, this is what this rule is talking about. I remember I was standing in line at Starbucks once, and I was a pool guy at the time, and I had my pool guy shirt on, like it said Coyote Pool Service on it.
I know, you gave me one of those shirts. I wore it this week.
Yeah, it's a great work shirt. There's no doubt what you're doing when you're wearing that shirt, right? And I'm standing in line at Starbucks. The guy behind me is like, "Oh, are you a painter?" And I turned and looked at him like,
"It says Coyote Pool Service."
Yeah, no, I'm a pool guy.
Like the kid in A Christmas Story. I like the Wizard of Oz. Yeah, don't bother me, kid.
This guy, yeah, but then he kept like talking at me, and like I don't think he had like he wasn't. I don't know why, but he just tried to kept stringing this conversation. Multiple times I turned my shoulders 180 degrees away from him, and then he would keep trying to have this conversation. And now I feel like if I was to turn to him and say, "I'm sorry, you're not getting it. I don't want to talk to you. We're not going to be friends." And then if I turn back at that point, now I'm the bad guy.
But what's that going to cost you? You're never going to see this guy again. Like, why don't you already break that rule? Like, what you do in drive-thrus is borderline misdemeanor.
Well, so I try not to be rude. Like, I can be insular and self-contained and not, outgoing. but I try not to be actively rude to people. And that's the line that I'm talking about here. In that same scenario, evil Josh will look at him and go, "Oh, I'm sorry. You mistook me for someone who cares." And then turned away and then stopped looking at him.
That would be strangely effective. Now, how often does this actually happen in your life? Like, okay, in a typical month, how many times are you engaged in a conversation you wish you could just your way out of?
Well, if you start including coworkers, then we're talking several times a week. It's like, oh, let me tell you about X, or let me tell you about Y, and how many times do you find yourself politely nodding, but like either thinking about the next thing you're going to say or thinking about the work that you need to get back to? Yeah, you see? So how nice would it be to be like, let me stop you right there because I don't give two craps, and then turn and walk off.
Yeah. I don't know, man. My religious background tells me that when I have those kinds of feelings inside, that's imperfection that still needs to be refined out of my soul. Like, I should just look at them and feel love and compassion.
That's good, Ben talking. We are the darkest timeline.
Sorry, evil Ben.
Ben.
Evil Ben today, when I was talking to the self-aid and buddy care instructor after class, where I was trying to give him some feedback because he wasted some of my time, and he instead thought I was really interested in having a long conversation with him about all of his experiences giving first aid. I'd be like, listen, man, I really don't care about all your experiences. I'm going to walk out of this room and forget about you. I just want you to know that you wasted all our time today.
Yes, it's like, okay, I'm going to stop giving you constructive feedback and start telling you what I really think. That's evil Ben. Nice.
I'm worried about evil Ben coming out. Like, our Patreon supporters are like our most loyal listeners. Are they going to be like, oh no, there really is evil inside of him?
I think because our Patreon subscribers are our most loyal people, this is where we start recruiting people. This is the podcast where we're starting to build the evil organizations that we'll talk about later. But you are all on the hook.
Insiders.
Well,
okay. Well, you already took that one. That's a good one. Let me tell you one. I know this one's dumb and it doesn't apply to anyone, but the military has this thing where you kind of have to have the comportment and demeanor of officers or any military member, and there's some stupid rules that go along with that, like that you can't ever have your hands in your pockets. Like, even if it's cold outside and you're standing around, you're not allowed to have your hands in your pockets. The Army and the Navy and the Marines aren't even allowed to carry umbrellas when it's raining if they're in uniform, unless they're holding it over the President of the United States' head.
I love how that has to be an exception.
But mine that I love to break all the time is eating and walking in uniform. It specifically says in the dress and appearance regulation you can't eat and walk in uniform. But like, I frequently like to, like, when I'm walking out the building to go out to my car, like grab a snack from the snack stand and just like eat it on my way out to the car, just to have something to do with my hands while I'm walking out to the car. But I'm totally breaking all the rules in the AFI 362903 when I do that. So evil Ben would rub his hands and cackle as he eat and walk in uniform.
I can see evil Ben walking, shoving potato chips in his mouth with like the crumbs coming back out as he's laughing.
And someone's, sir, excuse me, do you know about shut up?
Yeah, just blow right through him. Nice. I like that one. That's very, very low level like rule to break. But that's good because we're getting you out of your comfort zone. We are evil now, so let's work you up to it. The next step now.
See, that's the thing. If being evil were a shape, it would be a pyramid. Like, I got a lot of evil things I want to do way at the low end, like not even the crime level. When you start getting up to the high end, I don't got a lot of things I want to do up there.
Oh, yes, you do. You just don't.
All right.
You just haven't thought of the possibilities, my friend.
All right, let's brainstorm a bit then.
Okay, so now, like, again, baby steps into being evil. So we're going to talk misdemeanors. Now we're actually breaking the law. Like, we could get in trouble with established government authorities breaking these things, but they're low level, so you're not going to get in a huge amount of trouble. For me, it's as simple as empty red lights. You ever been driving around late at night and you get to a four-way intersection that's got red lights and there is nobody awake in the whole town? Not a soul
in sight.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, you know what? This red light doesn't apply to me. And just
you do that already, don't you? I do.
What? No, I don't do that.
Yeah, like, screw that red light.
No, good Josh is like way too afraid of the ramifications.
I am already evil Ben then, because like that is one situation which I'm just very comfortable being like, forget about it.
Really?
Yeah.
Man, I don't know. Like, I always feel like I sit there and I have the conversation with myself
Just some
every
cop
time.
is going to drop out of the sky and give you a ticket for doing what? Risking everyone's lives at an empty intersection in the middle of the night?
I mean, this is one of those rules that exists sans any kind of circumstances, right? It doesn't
Right.
matter. You blew the red
Doesn't
light.
matter what the circumstances. Have you ever pulled up to a stoplight that's malfunctioning and it's red and like the sensor underneath you is broken or something like that, and you sit there for like 5 minutes, you're like, wait a minute, this light is never going to change. Have you ever had that happen?
I have had that happen, and
Because then you become at odds with this rule. It's the immovable object and the unstoppable force.
yes, but I mitigate that by sitting there for probably way longer than I should need to just verify. Like, oh well, yeah, I don't want to be the guy that blows the red light and then 10 seconds later it turns green. Like now, doesn't it just look stupid?
It feels like forever though.
Well, it feels like forever but it's not. So wow, Ben, you already got me. Ben is more evil than I am. This is that right there.
I do blow through empty red lights.
Podcast over. This is a law that Ben consistently breaks. You're welcome, everyone. Okay, so
all right,
misdemeanors. What do you got?
Man, I had this experience one time where my sister and I were flying together, and she got randomly selected to be screened. Today being September 11th, I think it's a good day to talk about this. And they pulled her aside and they took her suitcase apart and they were kind of, like holding up her underwear in the middle of a busy airport. And I thought, you know what? Screw this. Like, we are law-abiding citizens. Our father was in the military. We've lived in the United States our entire lives. We're good, God-fearing Christians who serve in the military and stuff like that. I don't think this should ever have to happen. And ever since that time, I've had just like this burr under my saddle for the TSA. Just every worthless, non-protective thing that they're doing, making me take off my shoes and take out my belt and take my laptop out of my bag and just everything. And I just want to like, just like you in the drive-thru, but a lot higher risk. Walk up to the thing and they're like, take off your shoes, sir, and just go look at them and go, no. Now, I know where that leads. That leads to like the back room and the anal probe, but you know what? Screw it. No.
This is interesting because, like, we're talking about the TSA specifically, is a weird intersection in private industry and government regulation. So, like, the airlines are in charge of actually running these flights, right? But then the government gets between you and the service that you've paid for in a way that can and has caused many people to miss flights or get, kicked off planes or put on the do not fly list. And, like, I understand the need for security, but it's just such a weird juxtaposition of, like, I missed my flight because of the government and it's somehow my fault.
Right. Do you think, I know we're going way down a rabbit hole here, but do you think that if the government completely stepped out of it, I mean, the businesses have a vested interest in ensuring that their flights aren't hijacked, exploded, or, otherwise disrupted. Do you think they would do a better or worse job than the government does?
That's an interesting question. I think they would ultimately do a worse job. And the reason is because they would have to pay for it with their own money. And so then they would try to maximize their profit margin. They're always trying to maximize profit margin. That's what private industries do. And so every year they would just find either more corners to cut or ways to do it faster. Maybe it's not as effective, but it's a little bit quicker, that kind of thing.
Okay, I know this feels like a dystopian movie, but imagine like a world where United Airlines is the ones that's getting hijacked and American isn't. Now American is distinguishing themselves as being the airline with better security. That gives them a business advantage. They'll spend more money on it. It's like when we turned the corner on seatbelts. The government didn't have to regulate seatbelts anymore. Cars started advertising their crash rating.
That example goes both ways, because there are still people that are going to fly in United if that ticket's $30 cheaper with a higher risk of the flight being hijacked.
I like when people are allowed to make their own risk decisions.
Well, and the other end of that dystopian nightmare is that the airline companies would then somehow do it like one of those tiered offerings. Like, well, here's your ticket, and if you pay
your low security package.
Exactly.
You get to sit in the back where the guys got to keep their box cutters.
This flight is a low security flight, but it's a red eye and it's dirt cheap. We're even going to skip on the maintenance, maybe. Like, there's just a high-risk flight. Like, this
Gosh,
is just something
there's nothing like this. I don't know how you're able to imagine this. There's nothing like this. Where business has a vested interest in providing you a safe and secure experience, they do a good job of providing safety and security.
I have very low faith in the airline industry just because of how many corners they've cut already. Like, how many government bailouts does one industry need before everyone just recognizes that they're going to fail? Like, we understand that this is a vital function that we need in our society, but it's either clearly not profitable or everybody that's currently doing it is corrupt.
Okay, think about something else that's kind of like that, like going to a sporting event. You go to a sporting event and you're like getting on the equivalent of an airplane. You know, you're getting in this tube where you're going to be sitting next in close quarters to a bunch of other people for 2 or 3 hours, and then they're going to let you out again. You know, the TSA isn't there doing security. It's the stadium. It's the sports team.
You're right. You know what? You're making a very strong argument to me for why does the TSA even exist in the first place?
Yeah, I don't know. But it's my libertarian streak. Sorry, I would be an evil libertarian world domination leader.
Oh, we're not there yet. We will get there, but we have to work our way up first.
Okay.
So now I'm going to ask you first. You go first. We've done the misdemeanor, like low-level crimes. You're going to get fined. You know, that's it. Let's talk felonies. Let's talk serious jail time. What felony do you want to commit?
I thought about this long and hard, and I had to make another jump that I'll talk about in a minute. But if I'm going to be committing felonies, I'm probably going to be experimenting with illegal drugs.
Ooh, like the good ones, or just like the namby-pamby ones that are going to be legalized in a year anyway?
I'm not messing around with that stuff.
Okay. So you want to go on hardcore substance abuse for what, like marijuana? Are we talking marijuana, alcohol, like some of the normal drugs?
I don't know. See what the big deal is.
What's this? What's this?
What's this crack cocaine all about?
I have read like autobiographies of people that were hardcore junkies, and like they make it sound very appealing. Like, oh man, like if you believe the literature, cocaine is the best thing ever.
Yeah.
That's a
but
good
again, there's some other jumps that have got to be before I'm at that place.
No, you're evil now. This is evil Ben, evil Josh, evil bad at magic, like substance abuse. Like, I'm surprised you're not shooting up while we're on the podcast. Okay, for me, this is actually the easiest one that I had on this list, and it is hands down, no doubt about it, murder.
Spoken like a true atheist.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. You and I have a different way of evaluating how much a human life is worth.
The value of a human life, yeah.
That's exactly it. And you know what? There are some people where, like, I look at them long and hard, and there's a handful of people in my life where I have done this math already. Like, you know what? No, you're a net loss for humanity, and the world would be better without you.
Did I ever tell you the time I made a chart and showed my children how they were a net loss?
Oh, jeez. Like financially, emotionally, what?
No, just the tidiness of our home. I called it our mess differential, and I made a bar chart, and everyone got a color coded bar on the chart, and 0 was a neutral mess differential, as in you clean up the exact same number of messes as you make. So a negative number means you make more messes than you clean up, and a positive number means you clean up more messes than you make. And I estimated everyone's differential, graphed it all out on this chart, and showed it to them and said, you see this? Our family total is below 0, which means our house gets messier every day unless someone has a big day.
Yeah, and then you point at
if just a few of you here raise your numbers just a bit, or even, heaven forbid, went to the positive side of the line here, the whole thing would skyrocket and we would live in a tidy, beautiful existence.
I love that you're giving like a mid-level manager like spiel to your kids about something so inane. It's like, listen, people, we've got to clean out the break room fridge.
That lecture.
That's great.
Yeah.
No, but that murder, I want to kill people. And
all right.
And you know what? Sometimes, Ben, it's just for the dumbest things. Like sometimes you know a person long enough, like, yeah, you know, you should just be dead. Not like I don't want to. Maybe I don't want to kill you. Some people, yes, I do want to kill. Other people, it's so situational. Like you're driving on the highway and somebody like just is driving like a maniac and like cuts you off, and you're like looking around for the cop or whatever. And sometimes you just be like, you know, I would kill you if I had the opportunity.
I read a book this week. It was called The Sound of Gravel. It was about this young girl who grew up in a splinter cult polygamous group just south of the U.S. border in Mexico. Mm-hmm. And her polygamous father died, and her mother remarried another polygamous man and had another, dozen kids with him. And he immediately started sexually molesting all of his stepchildren.
Because that's what you do in splinter cults, apparently.
And I was reading this book, and it was just infuriating me. And I was thinking, this guy just needs to die. Like, somebody needs to murder him. Like, the whole world would be a better place if this guy were murdered.
Now, you see, but you're not evil Ben now. Now you're talking about dark hero Ben.
That's like, chaotic good.
Yeah, that's a whole different end of the spectrum. We're not talking about that. We're talking like the world is going down. We're going to profit from it burning.
Oh, well, then that's not what you're talking about either. The people you've picked out.
That's also, well, I don't know. The guy that cut me off on the freeway the other day that I think should die probably has a wife and kids and a very valid reason why he's driving like a maniac, but that does not, I don't care.
I went to my first movie since the quarantine kicked off this week. I went and saw Tenet, the new Chris Nolan movie where it's like this weird time loop thing. And anyway, before the movie was this trailer for this upcoming Russell Crowe movie. And it's kind of just showing like this usual traffic situation. This lady with a kid in the back cuts off Russell Crowe in his truck. Just like brutally, no doubt she was completely wrong. Anyway, he just kind of blows it off, and then later on they end up next to each other in traffic, stuck in traffic right next to each other. And he rolls down his window and convinces the kid in the backseat to roll down their window, and he's like, hey, now's your chance to say sorry. And she's basically just flips him the bird and says, up yours, buddy. And then the movie goes off the rails into like unhinged crazy man, like burning down her house kind of thing.
You've seen, sounds like Falling Down. Have you seen that movie?
Yes, like Falling Down, except not quite so comical. Not like running around shooting innocent people with a gun. He's just out for retribution with this one lady.
Gotcha. Okay.
Who seems like a reasonable lady that was just having a bad day.
Yeah, but like Russell Crowe was right there. It's like you have the opportunity to now say you're sorry. Like maybe I should have been shot in traffic a couple of times because I made bad decisions. But I do like to give the sorry wave, right? You get that? Like that's the thing. Like you can go from I want you dead on the side of the road in front of me to that's not such a bad guy. If you just throw
as long as they give you the sorry wave,
throw up I just acknowledge that's my bad. Like that's it.
Yeah.
That's all it takes.
The British are very like that. I had that exact experience once. I was picking up my in-laws from the airport. My wife stayed home. I drove into the airport, and on the way back, we stopped at a highway rest stop. And the British parking spaces are comically narrow, and I was still driving my American car that we'd imported over there. So I squeezed into one of these parking spots, and we went in to get gas. And when we come out, the British couple I'd parked next to was standing next to their car with their hands on their hips.
Like, who is this guy?
There was nothing I could have done. I was on my side of the line, but they couldn't open the doors on their car.
Of course.
So I walk up, and once it becomes apparent that I'm the driver of the offending automobile, she launches into her lecture. She's like, I've called the management. I can't believe you. How would you possibly do this? All in a very proper British accent. And her husband's saying there like he's endured this many times in his life. And I did not do the British thing. I went into complete sorry wave mode.
Aww.
I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I can't believe that. I can see there that I blocked your car. That must feel terrible for you. You know what? Let me get in my car. I'll move my car out of the way, and I'll be really careful not to touch yours, and you can be on your way. I'm so sorry this happened. I hope I haven't made you late to go anywhere. Meanwhile, my in-laws are standing there watching all this, which really helped with my patience and the way I delivered
putting
the
the best
speech.
foot forward, yeah.
She waits for me to stop talking, and she launches into the next phase of her lecture. And her husband gets kind of a quizzical look on his face, and he tugs on her sleeve, and he's like, dear. And she's like, what? And the husband says to the wife, he said all the things. And she goes, I suppose he did.
That's funny.
Okay, then. And then she stopped, and I moved my car, and they left.
That's funny, because as soon as you said, like, she started up again the second time after you apologized, that's the opposite of the sorry wave. That's the, I'm so sorry, you're right, I did this wrong, all the way to the other end of the spectrum where, lady, if you say 3 more words, I'm going to light you on fire.
Wow. Yes, that is evil. And there was part of me inside that wanted to be like, listen, lady, I have a hard enough time in this country. And you know what it's like trying to park this car in these spots? You didn't exactly park in the middle of your space either. That's a completely different way this could have gone. But no. I said all the things.
I thought all British cars open from the front. Like the whole front of the car just opened up and you climb in that way.
It would be really helpful sometimes. All right, so you put on here the highest tier of treason, but you didn't write down any notes. I know what mine is, but I want to hear yours.
Oh, you want to hear mine? Well, and so I had a hard time with treason because I've had way too many opportunities to commit treason, and so I've got to be careful with my joking, sarcastic, evil,
like
bad
actual
magic.
opportunities to commit treason.
Yeah, like actual treason. So it's got to be like super farcical, right? So it's just an extension, honestly, from murder into assassination. Like,
Okay.
There are people in charge of things that, and not necessarily like just the government, but like major corporations or
I see.
Just-
where they're important enough and influential enough in where they are that it wouldn't just be classified as murder.
Yeah.
It would cross a few boundaries.
yeah, it goes from like the local sheriff investigating to like the CIA kicking in the door and be like, "Who's in charge here?" "Not anymore, you're not." Like that kind of
Right.
scenario.
Okay.
That's what I'm talking
Yeah.
about.
Got it. All right. Mine's way lawful evil kind of thing. So in the Book of Mormon, there was a king who was also devoutly religious Christian, and at one point his kingdom was starting to devolve into chaos, and he was kind of wringing his hands about it because as a king he felt like he didn't have enough influence to prevent it from happening. So he said, and now as the preaching of the word had a great tendency to lead the people to do that which was just, yea, it had a more powerful effect on the minds of the people than the sword or anything else, he thought it was expedient that he should try the virtue of the word of God. So he denounced his throne and went out and became a full-time missionary because he felt like telling people to believe in God was more powerful at influencing them to make the right decisions than his power as a king.
And so then his entire kingdom continued to burn to the ground even faster because of an abrupt change in power, and there's a huge vacuum where less savory individuals grabbed at trying to get whatever chunks they could, and everything broke into like gang turf wars. Right? That's how it
that
goes.
happened at other times. This particular time, he had some success, but that's the thing I think of. I told you before about one time when I got called in a small room while my commander wrung his hands about an alcohol-related incident in our unit, and I'm just sitting there thinking, we just need people to be more righteous. Like, I don't want to sit here and talk about like public embarrassment or retribution or like making people write sentences or hold up signs or come in on a Saturday morning in mess dress or in their service dress because somebody made a stupid thing. How about we teach them to live righteously? That'd be nice.
So,
But apparently that's against the Constitution, so that would be treason.
wow. That's the most weak sauce treason I've ever heard. Just like
That's all I can think of I would want to do that would be treasonous.
the hype.
I occasionally want to be a bit insubordinate to the chain of command. I guess that's weak sauce treason.
So you just want to teach seminary in public schools. That's your treason.
Yeah, I just want to be able to tell my airmen, like, be righteous because it's good. Not because you're going to have to come in on a Saturday in mess dress or whatever.
Oh, Ben.
In service
oh,
dress.
Ben, that's so adorably naive from my perspective. From your perspective, like you said, it is the word of God, and that is the power, yea, verily. But
Yeah.
other people in the room on this podcast, we need incentive, and it's not being driven because the book told me to. I'm sorry. Like I believe that that does have power to truly enrich people's lives. But that's all. That is all carrot, buddy. And sometimes you need the stick.
I was thinking about this today because that polygamy book really threw me for a loop. And I was thinking, if I found out, because I was trying to think about how I would be evil Ben, I was thinking it would have to be that I found out some way that there was no God.
No.
And
I disagree. But go ahead, continue, and then I'll come back to mine.
But if so I was like, okay, so what's my basis for like being loyal to my wife and to my family? It's based in my belief in God. And if that all of a sudden were gone, I don't know that I could articulate the importance of that as well as you can.
Okay, so here's the thing. Like what you're describing, this fits so beautifully into a D&D alignment chart. And I'm just going to skew your perspective ever so slightly. And like I think it's going to wake you out of this. You ready?
Yep.
What you're describing is the difference between lawful and chaotic, not necessarily the difference between good and evil.
Okay.
Bad
okay.
guys
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
think they're bad guys, and bad guys can have and often do have their own code of ethics that they prescribe to. Okay?
Sure.
So there is nothing saying that you can't be the head of a conquering army that may be benevolent from your perspective, but a conquering army nonetheless from everyone else's perspective, be very lawful and very, air quotes, good, but from the other perspective, holy crap, this guy is like crucifying villages and burning down Sodom and Gomorrah and doing all of the things.
So why is what I said chaotic?
Well, no. What I'm saying is, it's the difference. Like
You're just talking about the other axis on the line.
Yeah, exactly. You are you're gluing lawful into good, and you can't get away from those two. You can still be lawful and have your own internal code of ethics, and still be a totally evil jerk. Those aren't mutually exclusive.
I get that, but yeah, then you could put almost anybody in that lawful good quadrant as long as they think what they're doing is right, and that's their basis for what is good. But I think there's an assumption in a D&D alignment chart that there's some type of objective measurement of good.
Well, it's a utility.
Not subjective. Not everyone that thinks what they're doing is right is good.
I think D&D, like when you're getting into the nitty-gritty of it, I think they describe it in a very utilitarian sense, in that somebody that is good is a net positive. Good things happen in the world because of them, or they go out of their way to cause good things to happen. Whereas
but you're using the word to describe the word you're defining.
Moral. No, I'm sorry. Like, you just sheer utility. Like, people's lives are left better in the wake of this person. Versus the other end of the spectrum, where they might have their own code of ethics and behave in a quote-unquote lawful way, but the world is just quantifiably worse as they pass through it.
It's still complicated. Like you said, the conquering army. The conquering army might come in and take a, like a third world country and rehabilitate it, but the dead people aren't going to be thankful for the fact that those guys came in.
I mean, the Romans conquered a lot of Europe at the time for the technology level they had, and they made everything objectively better. Like technology, engineering, schooling, civil government, bureaucracy, everything was
Public
better.
works. Yeah.
But they still killed a lot of people to do that.
Right.
So it's all a matter of perspective. We want to talk about morality, let's talk about perspective, but we're not doing that. We are evil, Ben and Josh. We don't care about other people's perspectives.
All right, well, if we're going to be evil Ben and Josh, we're going to need some role models.
Some role models. This is a good idea. So that leads us in a discussion of if we are to become these villainous, like we're going to grab evil by the haunches and just take it to town. What kind of evil person, what kind of evil persona are you going to be? So I have, in my mind, like I think about evil way too much, but I have several categories of the evil archetype that you see in like movies and comic books and just pop culture all the time. Like the stand-up caricature, like this is the bad guy. And they have different types. So you have the supervillain. It is the solo bad guy that just has some sort of solo power. Like he himself internally is just powerful. And you have to contend with that. And when we're talking about supervillains, I want to say Thanos, but he has an army behind him, so he doesn't count. What I'm going to say is like Zod from the DC universe. Like basically...
Like the 1970s Superman movie bad guy?
Bow before Zod.
Had the same powers as Superman, but decides to use them for evil instead of for good.
And he also had a goatee. He did that. That's how you knew people were evil back in the 70s, is they had the goatee.
I get that.
Yeah. He himself, like, he didn't have a conquering army. He didn't have an organization or legitimate, or like any kind of structure behind him. It was just him. And he was powerful enough to do the evil things that he wanted to do. On the other end of this, on a different end of the spectrum, these are not left and right. This is a diagram, right? A character chart. Is the evil genius. And this is the guy who's not super powerful, but he's
the smartest man in the room.
Yes. And he knows that, and he twists that, and he uses it for his own benefit. We're talking about, like Superman again, like the Lex Luthors in the world. We're talking about...
Again, you go to the DC universe.
I went to the DC universe, which is just... they got better villains, I guess. I don't know what to tell you there. But no, the first Incredibles movie, the bad guy in that one, what was his name?
Yeah, Syndrome.
Syndrome. Evil genius, right? Like, he used technology to try... Honestly, that's a whole different thing, but I might have mentioned this before. He screwed up, and he ultimately failed because he didn't recognize he was an evil genius. He was trying to be a supervillain, when if he had just embraced being the evil genius, he'd have been way better off. So that's that. Yeah, using their brain and their sheer intelligence in whatever way is most beneficial to them or easiest for them to get their evil means accomplished.
But Syndrome was motivated by like a kind of a chaotic neutral kind of thing, where he wanted to make everyone super so that no one would be.
Yeah, but he crossed into evil when he started like, oh, I'm going to destroy a city to prove a point, kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
That's when you cross from neutral to evil.
That's classic. That's classic evil motivation. The ends justify the means.
Yes.
And at both ends, someone that thinks they're good or someone that thinks they're evil. If you start with the ends justify the means, you're probably evil. The ends matter. The means matter.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay.
All right. So supervillain, evil genius.
The last one I've got is the evil CEO, and I call him this specifically. You see this all the time. The one I put on here was Cobra Commander, but think of any movie like we just watched a really, really dumb movie. I can't even remember the name of it. It was on Netflix. It had, it was about like 5 people that were immortal and they were warriors, and they said, you know what, we can live forever and we can't be killed. And when they die, they come back to life at like 2 minutes later, and they decided that they were going to just be good and they were just going to try to make the world a better place. Well, there was a CEO of a pharmaceutical company that found out they were immortal and was just doing everything he could to capture and eviscerate and, extract that immortality from them. Ends justify the means style.
Right.
So the difference between this person is that they are the head of an organization. Maybe they're not super smart, maybe they're not super powerful, but they are the head of an organization. They get to set the moral tone. This is the guy that says,
I like this one.
This is like, you know what? I'm going to be doing some shady stuff, and I admit that right now. And so I'm going to need like my own private security force. Whenever you watch these movies and you have these businesses where like guys wearing all black with submachine guns come running out of a side hallway, like who signs up for that job, Ben? It's like, hey, I got a security guard job at this place, and my uniform is
Evil
all
corporation.
black, and they gave me a automatic weapon. Should I be worried? Like, is a superhero going to come in and start trying to kill me at some point? So,
yeah.
Another good example from real life, unfortunately, is people like Hitler and Stalin. Like, personally, they were...
Yeah, they're not really powerful. They're not geniuses.
Exactly, but they had the charisma and they had the ability to build a structure underneath them to support their evil ends.
Yeah. When you started describing this evil CEO type, I thought of Zorg from The Fifth Element.
That is an excellent evil CEO. Just got to the point where he's more money than God, if you excuse the phrase, and just does whatever he wants.
Right. Whatever brings me the most profits. I don't care if people die. I'll sell weapons of both sides.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking. That's the guy I'm talking about as an evil CEO.
Yeah.
So personally, I mean, so if we had to pick, and if we were able to pick, like if I could just say like I want to have superpowers and be a supervillain, I absolutely would. Like if you're going to give me superpowers and I get to pick what they are, I'm not going to be a hero, Ben. I'm going to be the guy that goes to the government and holds the government hostage for like Arkansas. It's like I want the entire state just because I don't want to talk to anybody ever again. That kind of thing. But that's not going to happen. In real life, I think I would be much better suited as the evil CEO. Like I know the processes and the things that we need to put into place to get things rolling. I know how to put the big bureaucratic machine together to get things done. I think I could be a CEO.
Yeah, so you made me think of these kinds of things I see that get passed around on social media from time to time, where it's like a little image macro that says push one of these 6 buttons and you get a superpower, but you can only push one of the 6.
Mm-hmm. So then you get to pick which superpower you
right. You can be invisible, or you can run real fast, or you can leap tall buildings single bound, whatever. And I think if I was going to be a supervillain, I would definitely choose a different one than if I was going to be good. Like you'd want a different
power set. That's interesting. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you right now that if I'm going to be an evil, like the power that I want is I want to be able to read people's minds. Like if I'm evil, that is like just so.
But if you're invisible, that's like almost the same as reading their minds. It has other empowers too.
The problem is it's limiting in its applications. Like there's only so many things that you can accomplish by being invisible, and then once your like your heists or your plots get bigger than just you and a handful of guys, like now you're outside of your scope and your power doesn't really contribute that much.
Reading is so complicated logistically. You know, sometimes the comics bring up these kinds of things, like Superman has super hearing. He can hear something on the other side of town. All right, how does he filter out everything the rest of the time?
That was one thing that I think they did right in the Superman, the reboot movies that they just did, is that Superman always had his powers, and his struggle and his development was about focusing and being able to just channel it into the one thing. But like mind reading, I'm making a strong case for mind reading because it just.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen the show? You haven't, of course. It's on Amazon. It's called The Boys. Are you aware of it? Because you're aware of everything.
I'm aware of it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just a like kind of gritty alternate take on superheroes where they're a bit corrupt and power mad.
Not even a bit. Like ultra corrupt and ultra power mad. And one of the throwaway characters in the show is a mind reader. Like if he touches you, then he can read your mind like perfectly. And he was busted for insider trading. And like that's the kind of that is exactly the kind of thing that mind reading is good for. It's like me in my house here, I don't have the structure or the resources to make an evil organization. But I'll tell you what, Ben, a couple years of mind reading the right people in the right places, I could really make a killing on the stock market, and now I've got the ball rolling.
So one superpower that really captured my imagination that I think I'd want if I was going to be it was this film that Bradley Cooper made a few years ago called Limitless. Do you remember?
Yeah.
He had like this a guy give him this pill that just made your mind so that you just had this incredible capacity to just think and calculate and plan and just be really super smart.
Okay.
That's mine.
No, that's how I'm like every day. So I'm sorry.
All right. Well, who are my evil role models? Okay, so I was starting to think like, I don't know. I guess I just don't have very large ambitions. Like I don't want. I'm not, if we're Pinky in the Brain, I'm gonna be Pinky, not the Brain. I like. What are we doing tonight, bro? Like just so. I started thinking, who are my favorite supervillains, and they're the kooky ones that like maybe do have some promise, but then kind of waste it with either small ambitions or the lack of direction for where they want to go with it. So I immediately thought of Dr. Doofenshmirtz, Dr. Heinz Doofenshmirtz from Phineas and Ferb.
Doofenshmirtz Evil Incorporated.
That's it. So he's the evil CEO, right? He doesn't have any superpowers. He's kind of a genius, but he's like a kooky genius. Like, I'm going to conquer the entire tri-state area.
Well, he's got one thing, right? Like, you start small, right? Baby steps. You're not going to conquer the world right off the bat.
But he's not going for world domination. He just wants to conquer the tri-state area.
Well, for now, if he ever actually pulled it off, he would definitely set his sights higher. That's the whole point of being evil, right?
I don't know. I think he just wants to conquer the tri-state area. He also wants to be a good father.
Which, that's the lawful part. That doesn't make him good.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see?
And he wants to conquer Perry the Platypus, but he doesn't want to kill him.
This might have you might having your evilness skewed here by the fact that both of your villains are PG villains at best.
Have you seen Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog?
Dude, I have the soundtrack, and I can sing multiple songs without music.
Me
the top of
too.
My head.
Listeners, if you haven't watched Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog, go on. It's available for $20 on Amazon Prime. It's 45 minutes and 3 acts. It was this brilliant thing that Joss Whedon, the same director of like Star Wars movies we love to complain about, and the
Marvel movies, the
Avengers,
the Firefly, the maker of all of the great things.
But in this weird time in like the mid 2000s, there was this huge writer's strike where like all of Hollywood came to like a screeching halt. And he was like, I got some time on my hands. I kind of had this secret plan in the back of my head that I just wanted to do this like indie internet only film back when the internet was still kind of gaining its legs. So he got together some of his closest friends, which happened to include Nathan Fillion, Neil Patrick Harris, and Felicia Day, and made this little musical that they filmed in an afternoon, and it's brilliant. It's an origin story of an evil super genius who's trying to join the evil League of Evil.
Man, I can't say enough. I can't sing Dr. Horrible's praises high enough. And my there's so many things, but I'm going to narrow it. I'm going to say one thing about it, and that is in an interview about Dr. Horrible, they were interviewing Nathan Fillion. And if you don't know who Nathan Fillion is, then shame on you. But Nathan Fillion said, yeah, this was actually a really fun project. This was the first time I'd ever done a take, and then the director came up to me and goes, that was good, but can you do it cheesier?
That explains a lot about his performance in that.
Oh, yeah, and if you know Nathan Fillion,
wow, cheesy is his middle name.
Oh, man, that guy lays on the cheese in the best way.
Yeah, all right. So, Dr. Horrible, he kind of was just dissatisfied with the status quo, but he didn't really know what he wanted to do. He just knew he wanted more and felt like the shortest way to it was through the dark side of the Force instead of the light side.
Yes. Like, he wanted to make some changes. He wasn't clear on what changes would be better. Really, he wanted to make his own life. Like, he recognized that the world sucks, and it would be better if I was at the top of it. Is kind of like what his whole shtick was.
Yeah, that was pretty much it. So Dr. Doofenshmirtz, who just wants to rule the tri-state area, and Dr. Horrible, who doesn't know how to make things better but wants to be in charge of it.
Wow, Ben, I'm going to be like the evil CEO that gets killed at the end, like in the third climactic act of an action movie, and
thrown off a building.
And you're never going to quite know if he's dead. It's like that weird cliffhanger, like, is he really gone? And then you're going to be the 20-minute kid comedy show reboot, like, new evil plan, new day, and let's try again.
Well, if I'm going to be an evil supervillain, I need a good origin story. So I went rollerblading today. I did like 8 miles. It felt great, but I was thinking, what's my evil origin story? And I realized if I am going to be an evil an evil supervillain, I have to have a reason to abandon my entire belief system. So my evil origin story is I get abducted by aliens.
Oh, wow.
And it's all very corporeal and tangible. Like, it's not this mystical, mysterious, did I dream it kind of thing. But, like, they come down, they put me in the ship, they fly me up in space, they introduce me to the alien that played Jesus back 2,000 years ago. They show me video of the whole thing, how they convinced the whole world that Christianity is just this alien fabrication to see what would happen down on Earth while they're observing us do all these crazy things. And I would sit there for a minute and scratch my head and question my entire existence and then come down to Earth and have a much more comfortable way to kind of just be comfortable being evil.
So let me recap that real quick. So what you're saying is that you would be evil if you were given concrete evidence that there was no reason for you to be good.
Right. if just when I die, I'm dead, and there is no afterlife, and there was no Christ, and there is no God, and then I'm first thing I'm doing is I'm coming down and I'm gonna try some beer. I think
I'll be there with you. I'll buy your first flight because we can't start with one. We got to get you the whole spectrum.
And I'd be like, Josh, you need to buy me a drink. Have I got a story to tell you?
On the flip side of this, I want you to think about like somebody that genuinely believes everything that you just said. Like, so you said you would need all of these things to happen before you'd even contemplate being evil. Ben, I'm there, buddy. Like, I am one time being cut off in traffic from going off the deep end. That's it. I'm conquering the world. Tri-state area first, hemisphere second.
But what do you do with all that power? Like, I could see, I knew there was this great story that Malcolm Gladwell wrote about in Outliers about this guy that had like a 200 IQ, but he was terrible at social situations. So he just bought a farm in Missouri and just lived there and could rock, every evening at 5 o'clock he'd watch Jeopardy and answer all the questions faster than the contestants.
Okay, so that's a question. You have either your evil powers, if you want to go that route, or you have your evil intention and the resources at hand to form whatever evil organization and get the henchmen and the recruiting and the HR processes are all in place. You have what you need to be evil. What do you do with it, Ben? What do you do with your evil resources?
Oh, man. I'm still imagining evil HR. Like, does that mean that they're effective, or does that mean they're like an even worse version of current HR?
Well, it's got to be... Like, okay, you killed 6 people today, but you checked out like 7 more rounds than you needed to. Like, I know you're killing people, but we need to be more efficient than this. Or like, I'm more like the screening process. Like, how do you, in an interview with somebody off the street, how do you like subtly hint to them that like, so hypothetically, if your job included murder, how do you feel about that?
Yeah. 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 Oh no, I'm gonna be okay with it. Great, you're hired.
Wonderful. We have an incentive package.
Again, I'm assuming I either still believe there's a God, or know for a fact that there isn't.
We're going to skip all
Let's
of
see
that.
it.
We're abstracting all that away. The alien abduction happened. You have absolutely no reason to be good anymore. You are evil, Ben. This is the darkest timeline. You have your evil
I
resources.
have all this power. What do I want to do with
Yes.
it, dude? I just want peace. I just want peace.
Wow. Really? You can't. Like you
Yeah.
can't. You're terrible at being evil, Ben. Like, I
I'm bad at
conquered the
being
world
evil.
and made the whole thing better. Dang it.
Well, okay, I assume you've read a lot of Orson Scott Card.
Which one? Which book are you referring to?
The author of Ender's Game. Anyway,
Right.
I skipped a bunch of his books and I read the most recent one. And he had a character that lived on Earth when Ender was up in space saving the universe. He was down on Earth conquering Earth. And he kind of became like this benevolent hegemon. I think they called him the hegemon, where just through his skills and CEO, he like ruled the entire Earth.
Right. That was his
And he got
older
kinda-
brother, I think.
Yeah, his older brother. Like the whole family were just geniuses, and he used his powers to conquer Earth.
Okay.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
Okay. Well, man, Ben, you're bad at this. You have not thought nearly enough about being evil. Because I'll tell you what I would do. I'd be the evil CEO, right? And honestly, I would be maximizing utility. And like, I wouldn't be actively evil organization. I would be an amoral organization. I'd be an organization that is all about the bottom line, all about churning out products. So that means if I decide that it is more profitable to make a safe product that is more expensive, or if it's more, I will do that. Or if it's better for me and for my company to make a cheap product with known defects and just take care of it in court afterwards, because that's going to be cheaper than making the better product, I'm going to do that. And conquering the world would honestly be an afterthought. Like, it would have to be like the pros and cons.
It's just a side effect.
Yeah, it's the equation just comes out as like, you know what? It would be a heck of a lot easier to run my business if this government didn't exist, and then I just went and did that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, they like to try to set up forms of that all the time, but those guys always fail.
In what? Whoa! What are you referring to? Whoa! Hang on, because there's
All right.
there's arguments to be made.
Think of an example.
Us in the darkest timeline, we might be experiencing that right now, sir. We have kind of an evil CEO running the country if you haven't been paying attention.
Yeah, and he just makes bad decisions. They're not even good CEO decisions. But I got off there when anyone suggested he was ever an effective CEO. I don't think there's any evidence that ever happened.
Oh, he says it all the time. It has to be true.
Whatever. So, yeah, I mean, there's so much complexity in the diversity of the world. It's so easy to just kind of hand wave away, like, oh yeah, the whole world, just. But I mean, from the Amazon rainforest to the Native Americans in Alaska to the tribal Africans. I mean, it's so to the Taliban in Afghanistan. It's so diverse. What could you possibly have or do that would unify them? Whether it's out of benevolent unity or fear of your powers.
We're hand waving that because like a description of the steps that you would take to conquer the world starts with a slow authoritarianism takeover of a democratic government, which I am deathly afraid that we're living and experiencing as part of the darkest timeline. So I'm hand waving that. And so I'm going to skip that and like, okay, so if you...
But the power isn't real. I mean, even under the current system, I mean, there's a majority that don't agree with it, and I don't know how real it is. Okay, I'll give you an example.
Okay.
Here's a really good example. Our dictator-in-chief did a tour of Eastern Asia, had I'm trying to think of a polite way to say this, a measuring contest of his genitals with a dictator of a small country over there, and came home and still wanted to prove that his were bigger. And so he got it in his mind that he was going to have a communist dictator style military parade. He wanted to have planes, trains, and automobiles and tanks and airplanes flying right over all of our monuments of freedom in the nation's capital. Like we're freaking North Korea. Like this is Pyongyang. He wants to have soldiers marching down the street in the unison, turning and saluting him as they go by so that he can show all of our enemies that his is bigger than theirs. So what you don't know, and what I think a lot of people in this country don't know, is how close we got to actually doing that and why it didn't happen.
Well, I assumed it didn't happen because of the way that military leaders avoid stuff like that is by giving it over to the bureaucracy, knowing that there's no way that the bureaucracy can get it done effectively in the time frame, and then throwing up their hands and then going, "Oh, we couldn't make it happen. So sorry."
That's exactly what happened. But how is that not utter insubordination to the commander-in-chief of the armed forces?
Because they did exactly what he told them to do, just very slowly, and didn't quite make his deadline. That's all. They tried so hard.
Yeah.
Then.
Okay, so now let's imagine that same leader is telling that same group of people to, like, go to an American city and, like, violently enforce a curfew. Or
this is quickly becoming a very political episode of Bad at Magic.
I'm just saying, I think it would be the same thing. It would be, because I saw this happening around me, where everyone was going, that's going to be really expensive. That's going to do a lot of impact to the streets in the city. Has anyone done an environmental impact survey? All right, let's commission that. That should take a few weeks. Here's the estimate. Ooh, this is going to be, did you know this is going to cost $700 million? Do you know what we're not going to be able to do if we spend this money on that? Oops, I leaked that to the press. That's what was happening.
Well, because being a military leader at that level is a political position. Like, you have to know how to play games like that in order to succeed in that role. And they will swear up and down that they will follow that guy's orders, yea, verily. But you and I both know that if January 2nd comes and our dictator-in-chief hasn't won the election or it has been overturned and he doesn't want to leave the White House, there's going to be some armed dudes that haul him out of there with smiles on their faces.
Yeah, I could see that happening. So where's your evil lair going to be?
Oh, where's my evil lair going to be? Wow. Okay. So again, I'm an evil CEO, right? I'm not an evil genius, so I don't need to be hiding anywhere. I'm not a supervillain, so I don't have a hidden refuge in some volcano somewhere. Which, if you're
don't you have enemies?
But if you're the evil CEO, the whole point is the part of being an evil CEO is you have this, it's like organized crime. You just have this, everybody knows you're bad, but nobody can stick it to you. Yeah. That's what the evil CEO is. It's like everybody knows you're the bad guy, but nobody can really get you on it. And so I'm in a high-rise building somewhere, obviously, that I own, that I put the name of my organization on the side, which, side note, Doofenshmirtz got right. If I can...
And Tony Stark.
Oh, yeah. But I'm talking specifically about the fact that he has evil in the name. I want my company to be Evil Incorporated. If that's not trademarked, that's amazing. It's oh, what's that new car you're driving? Oh, that's an evil car. Come on. There's just so much there. Anyway, and I'm gonna have my giant office on the top floor. I'm gonna look out Zorg style from Fifth Element. My window is gonna be built into the name of the evil corporation on the side of the building. And I want it to be in a place that is always raining and always storming. And I want it to be the tallest building in the city, and I'm going to put lightning rods way high up because I want lightning to be striking my building every time it's pouring rain all the time. So I imagine this is in the Pacific Northwest with lots of rain and storms all the time. Maybe like a Seattle or a Vancouver area, perhaps.
Very good. Good choice. I would sign up to be your evil henchman.
No, that's something we should talk about because what you're describing is a thing. That is the indispensable number 2. Okay, when especially if you're talking about an evil genius or an evil CEO, they always have the long-term vision. They know where they want to go and how to get there. But there's always that number 2 guy, the logistics dude. You can think of number 2 from
get things done.
Austin Powers movies. The number 2 guy, Dr. Evil freezes himself for 3 or 4 decades, and number 2 goes and founds Starbucks. He's okay, the boss is...
So then he comes out of hibernation, he's got some money to spend.
Exactly. The boss is going to come back in 2 decades, and he's going to need resources. How do I make that happen? That's the guy.
I felt like that about Captain America, the First Avenger. The Red Skull was evil and stuff, but Arnim Zola was really the man that was getting things done.
Yes, exactly. Indispensable number 2.
All right. Well, my evil lair would... I don't know, man. I know you said if you made it hard to get to it because you needed to hide or you had enemies. But I still just like the appeal of like a James Bond style like mountaintop location that's only accessible on skis. It just really appeals to me.
So you get to fly your helicopter in and land, and then like nobody else.
Yeah,
It's just so
ski
remote.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have a tough time getting
Like-
charter internet out there, though.
Like the end of Inception. You know, it's just this like concrete fortress on top of a mountain, and everyone wears white, and you can just fly out on a snowmobile.
That's another thing that's very appealing about evil organizations is you get to dictate the uniform, and they can be as awesome as you want them to be.
Yeah.
Why do we have to wear ski masks all year round? It's so hot. Dude, just go with it.
Quiet Fred.
Dude, can't say my name. I'm 674. It's right here on my name
Report
tag.
to HR.
Oh, those are the tropes again. We talk about Austin Powers. Like, look at you. You don't even have a name tag. All right. So, I honestly feel like that's good. I think we've explored a lot of facets of fantasy and some real forms of evil that exist in the world.
I'd be bad at it. You'd be good at it. I guess I'd hope you'd have a place for me in your morally ambiguous evil organization.
Shocking revelation, everyone. Ben has a harder time being a bad person than I do. I think if you've listened to half an episode, you picked that up already.
I tried so hard this week to be evil, Josh.
You see, yeah, this is the problem.
I texted you from the drive-thru. I'm like, she told me to pull forward. What do I do?
I remember you texting me that, and like I could feel the sweat coming through the text message. Like you were way out of your comfort zone. Like, that's the most evil thing you did this week?
I pulled forward. I hesitated slightly. She had to tell me twice. I'm sorry, did you hear me? I said to pull forward. I'm like, yeah, I heard you. Texting Josh.
Oh no.
For strength.
Oh no. Did she say it all authoritarian like that? Did the drive-through lady pull rank on you? Major Ben Rich, father of 6, provider and taxpayer?
Yeah. And then I backed
Oh man, you had a golden opportunity and justification to put that young lady in her place. Like an action movie. Evil Ben and Evil Josh again. That's the... sir, did you hear me? I said pull forward. That's when you pull the Desert Eagle 50 caliber pistol out of your...
No. Something much more Doofenshmirtz. My fast food orderinator.
Yeah, that's your version of being evil. My version of being evil, I want that person to be in mortal fear for their life right now. It's like, I'm sorry. I need you to say that again in a different tone of voice. And or hand me my chicken nuggets, and then I'll go. Like, again, very falling down, where he tried to order breakfast at 10:35 and ended up pulling an Uzi on the clerk. Yeah, I've had that fantasy.
But the part you forget about that is he walked out hungry. He didn't get his food.
That's because he didn't commit. Like, that whole... the guy was having a mental break, and he was all over the place and scattered. Like, that was what that movie was about. But, like, if he was deliberately...
You need to focus. Focus, man. You want breakfast at 10:35. The food's all in the back. Just instead of shooting up the whole place, just find the guy in front of the grill and point the gun at him until he's made your biscuit.
I think the title of this episode, or the subtitle, should be like "Evil Bad at Magic: all of the tangents." Because here is a tangent that I have. I have this problem with every form of media: is that people in certain situations don't recognize the situation that they're in. Like, how many times have you seen? Like, the bad guy take the gun out and put the gun to the good guy's head and say, give me the information or I will kill you. If the good guy would take a second and be able to step away from the situation and analyze, he can go, if you kill me, you don't get the information. So literally both of your choices aren't going to get you what you want. And like...
Right, I have all the power here.
Recognize that there's an impasse and that guy can't force you to do anything. Or like the moral quandary that they try to say. It's like, oh, well, the whole... Like, if a terrorist like put the gun to your head and say like, "Oh, kill this one person, or I'm gonna kill like 50 people," right? And it's like, and
the trolley problem,
and it's on you. It's like it's your choice. But like the thing is, like, it's not your choice. This situation exists with or without you. It's not your fault that you're in this situation, and you didn't cause anything. Like, there is no moral lever against you in the trolley problem to do anything. Like, that's like, do you pull the lever and let the one person die, or do you like have it careen off and kill 5 people? It's like, it doesn't matter. It's not your fault. The trolley is going to kill somebody. So that's a different question, and nobody ever asked that one.
You'd make a bad philosopher.
I'd make an excellent philosopher. Like
Evil philosopher.
Evil philosopher. This is, and again, that's because I weigh human life differently, and I take a very utilitarian view of the world. And yeah, I actually had a lot of very spirited debates with my philosophy professor, which was a mandatory class at the United States Air Force Academy. And they couldn't convince me one way or another, in classic philosophy style, that what I was saying was wrong.
Oh, nice. I wish I could have been there for that. Well, I want to keep our bonus content here a bit pithy, so let's end our foray into the evil and call it a day.
I'm not ending my foray. Like, you're dipping your toes into evil, buddy. I'm paddling into the shallow end, headed to the diving board. So I'm just going to keep getting more and more evil, people. Like, just expect it.